Matty Fresh on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate. Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and ballin' like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
And welcome back to Booze, Bets, and Ball. I hope your day's going better than mine. But Nate's is probably going good, I know. But we are recapping Penn State's 44-31 loss to Ohio State, a game which the score at one point was a 3-possession game, but it never felt more than a point or so. Just a very odd game, I guess is the best way to put it.
Penn State was leading the game with 9 minutes left or something, right? And it was, let's see, as of, what time is this? This is 8:17 left. Penn State was only down by 2, give or take. And then Ohio State had a 1 drive and then a 7-drive touchdown. Oh, and then another interception touchdown. So, yeah, the wheels came off for the last 9 minutes of the game or so.
Yeah, the game started 10-0 Ohio State. Then it was 14-13 Penn State. Then it was 21-16 Penn State. And then it was, 44-21 Ohio State or something along, or 44-24 or something like that. Yeah, just crazy how they got outscored 28-3 in about 5 minutes, somewhere around there. Just it's very odd to watch. It's disappointing though, because they gave themselves a chance to win that game for the vast majority of it, and then they just totally imploded at the end there.
They sure did. Like when the drive to put Penn State up 21-16, which oh my God, if you told me that Ohio State was going to have 16 points at the end of the third quarter, I would think that C.J. Stroud got hurt or something, right?
Right.
Because they shut them down so well. But that that last drive was the one where Penn State decided they were going to kick the field goal, and Pinniger missed it, but it was a false start, and then Pinniger missed it again, but there was the defensive illegal formation, and then they decided to go for it. And you thought, I don't know, the team was kind of destined at that point, right, to somehow pull it out. And then Ohio State comes back with a 3-play, 75-yard drive, which went as follows. So Marvin Harrison, 21 yards. C.J. Stroud complete to Emeka Egbuka for 13 yards, and then Travion Henderson, 41-yard touchdown. And then it all went bad from there.
Yeah, it did. The pass defense played so well up until that drive, I felt like. And, they had problems with Marvin Harrison Jr.
They did, yeah.
All day. I think he went 10 for 185. It seems, each one of those 10 was at least a first down, if not more. It was a little backbreaking what he did there. And, Penn State has their defensive ways. I would have liked to maybe seen them just go to a Joey Porter Jr. shadow of him, because outside of him, the rest of the receivers didn't do a whole lot. It was kind of Cade Stover, the tight end, that was kind of number 2 to Stroud on Saturday. So, I would have liked to see them get a little more aggressive with that. Shut him down. I think they would have had way more of a chance in that fourth quarter. But, it's hard to put this on the defense. They held them to 37 points, technically. Yeah. It was probably a little less because I think Ohio State got 17 off turnovers or something like that.
No, I thought they got 21 off turnovers.
Oh, 21. Oh, yeah. So that's kind of the point where the defense didn't look bad. And overall, I would say this game was just totally different from Michigan, because in that game, even when Penn State had a lead, it didn't look like they belonged. No. It didn't look like they belonged in that game. But this game, from start until the 7-6 minute mark of the fourth quarter, they looked like they belonged in this game, and they could have easily have won it. And that's encouraging. Obviously, there's no moral victories in a game that takes you out of the Big Ten title and the playoff. But, I think overall it was at least an improvement over what we saw from against Michigan.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think a lot of people kind of predicted that Penn State would match up better with Ohio State than they did with Michigan, and that absolutely happened, right? But still, yeah, like you said, I mean, there are no moral victories, and for the team to really kind of hang in there for such a long time, but really also not be able to put it away, right, in any meaningful way too. Yeah. So you look at, coming out the first drive of the second half, Penn State leading 14-13. That's the one where they went to that T formation on 4th and 2 and handed it off to Kaytron Allen going right and got stuffed, right? Like the Ohio State defense absolutely saw that coming 100 miles away. That maybe that's one where like you do what you did in the fourth quarter, which was on the 4th and 1 when they went away from the field goal and they threw it to Ty Warren on kind of a quick slant off the right. Like, they went to that well just one too many times. And I think if, thankfully they got away from it in the fourth quarter, because I think if you handed it off to Kaytron Allen there and he didn't get it, like Beaver Stadium would have burned to the ground. But like at the same time, do a little bit more out of that formation earlier, because every single time they've run that formation, it's either been a quarterback sneak or that handoff, like kind of on a sweep to one side or the other. And then I forget what happened in this drive, what particular drive. This must have been a touchdown drive. I think it was the Keandre Lambert-Smith touchdown where they went to that formation, they motioned out of it, and then they had that diamond and one, and then Clifford was going to take it up the middle, but Ohio State called the timeout. Like, I don't know, like it was there. There was lots of things. There's lots of things they can do out of that, but they just chose not to in that one particular instance. So then you go downs, punt, you give up an Ohio State field goal, and then you get the touchdown on that crazy drive. And then after that, they were fumble, field goal, interception, pick six, and then touchdown to end the game in what was like a meaningless drive with that last one.
Yeah, I think that's what we got to get to here. So bring that up if I could see it. Can I see it? Yeah, I can. There we go. All right, so we have Sean Clifford's wild day. I have a roller coaster in the background because that's what this game pretty much was. Started 3 for 6, 15 yards, 2 interceptions, a rating of 4.3, and Penn State's down 10-0. Then he goes 21 of 29 for 267, 2 touchdowns. The rating's 172, and that's when it gets to 21-16. Then we have 2 of 14 for 14 yards, an interception, which was a pick six, a fumble. The rating goes to 29.4. That's when the game goes 44-24. And then finally, the last drive of the game, he goes 6 for 7, 75 yards, touchdown, crazy rating, and he breaks the touchdown record on that drive for Penn State, which I'm sure drove a lot of people crazy. I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, this was the most up and down day I think we've ever seen from Clifford and maybe Penn State quarterback in a very, very long time. I kind of thought he was going to do the Minnesota game all over again, where he started off so bad and then just went off, and he kind of did. And
he did for a second.
And then it resorted back to this again. So just an odd day, to say the least.
Oh my goodness. So he, like, overall, because I think this is important too. So overall, he was, let's see, the ESPN has QBR, but he was 371, 7.9 yards per attempt, which you don't have on there either. But so in the quarterback rating, like the 172, for what it's worth, would have been about as good as he was last year against Auburn, right? Like, and against Michigan State last year. So not quite as good, not quite as good as he was against Minnesota last week overall, but basically as good as he's ever been, right? Like in a game against competition like this. So his best 2 games are Maryland 2019 and Illinois 2020. And I don't know, like the 4.3 and the 29.4 are as bad as you could possibly be. And yeah, like the first 2 drives where he threw those picks. Just, I don't know, you couldn't have asked for a worse start. But then, like you said, they like everything in the middle. They were moving the ball. They averaged more rushing yards per attempt than Ohio State did. They were throwing the ball efficiently, like a lot of Parker Washington bailouts. They had an amazing day, incredible, absolutely breakout day. But like that offense absolutely looked like they belonged in the field. And then I don't know, JT, say it for me.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now. Tumaloa. That's definitely not right.
Just
they call him JTT, so I'm gonna call him
JTT.
Yeah,
Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I just took over, like did everything better than anybody that Penn State had, and won the game for them basically.
Yeah, Penn State in 2018 was kind of on the receiving end of the Chase Young breakout game when the younger Bosa, I can't remember which one, was out, and that kind of cost him the game because he made that big tackle on Sanders on the 4th and 5 play and everything. And it kind of happened again. I mean, he had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, which one was a pick 6 and a strip sack fumble recovery. I've never seen a defensive end have such an well-rounded day like that when you consider the interceptions as well. I mean, look, Caden Wallace, Penn State's right tackle, did not play. Bryce Effner was just totally outmatched. I mean, look, JTT was, I think, the number 2, number 4, top 5 player in his class. Effner, for he's looked good at times, but I think he was rated like number 600 or something, like in his class. Like, the talent matters, and I know people like to say it's mostly coaching. And look, maybe they could have kept Allen in or one of the tight ends to help on him. Maybe it would have made a difference, but at the end of the day, I just think they got totally out. They just got out talented by a player that looks like a future 1st-round pick.
100%. And these are the guys that like Penn State needs to have to be the difference between winning these games and being close and losing these games. I think, you can talk about coaching, but I think first and foremost, it starts with the talent. Like, Ohio State shouldn't have run the ball hardly ever. Like they were getting nothing running the ball, but they still went back to it time and time again. And then it's like later in the game where, Travion Henderson, who is amazingly talented, breaks a couple of big runs, but you can play bad 60%, not bad, but you can play fair 60-70% of the game. But when you have the talent that they do, that's so much better than what Penn State has. And that's not to diminish the talent that Penn State has, because they're still a top 10, top 14 team nationally in terms of talent composite. But, 5 stars are better than 4 stars, I think. And that's how it comes out. But crazy.
Yeah. And, Penn State showed at times that the talent was there. Like Parker Washington went off against their secondary, which I don't know, maybe their secondary isn't as good as years past. And I mean, even Sean Clifford for the 4 turnovers still had, 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards on them. So it's close, it feels like, but there's so many little things though that still, like getting a solid right tackle and, the quarterback cleaning up the turnovers and, whatever the plan was on defense in that game with the kind of the zone and playing off the ball so far didn't help. So just, I don't know, a lot of little wacky things. And, they didn't get a lot of pressure on Stroud either. I think the 2 times they did was when they brought people, because the 2 sacks were by a cornerback and a linebacker. So the front 4, even with Chop Robinson back, didn't do much. And that's something I think Diaz needs to look at, because they're not getting home with just 4.
They're not. But then you see, though, like there was a couple other times where they put pressure on him and they didn't end up in sacks, but Abdul Carter was in the backfield once and made Stroud run around. Like if they could have done that more consistently, I think this game goes a lot differently too. I mean, and that was a big narrative going into it. Like you got to make CJ Stroud uncomfortable, and they just didn't manage to do it enough. Just real quick, like, Ohio State's 2021 recruiting class, JTT, number 4 nationally. Emeka Egbuka, number 10 nationally. Travion Henderson, number 23 nationally, all 5 stars. And then let's see, 2020. Did they have anybody good in 2020?
I think that would have been Marvin Harrison's class.
It must be, but I don't see him. They have JSN and Julian Fleming. Marvin Harrison must have been 2021.
Yeah, he would have been. He was not a 5-star. He was like a top 50-ish guy, I think, like a 97 overall rating.
Yeah, they gave him 24/7 as 97th overall. The 14th best wide receiver. I mean, okay, they missed on that one a little bit because that dude is incredible. But anyway, yeah, like they have like 12 guys that are top 100 in their class, right? And Penn State gets what, 2 of them maybe a year, so it matters.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we talk about the blue chip recruit stuff, and Penn State's not that far behind in terms of that aspect, but there's a difference between number 25 in a class and number 350 in a class, and that's kind of where Ohio State is. And like you say, I mean, Penn State has three top 100 recruits in the 2023 class. I haven't looked at Ohio State's class this year, but I would guess that number is closer to 10, probably 7 or 8 right now, and it's not even over. And last year we talked about Penn State's arguably best class ever, and it was 3 in the top 100, I'm pretty sure. So, there is a difference there, and it shows a little bit. It doesn't show against the other 10 teams on Penn State's schedule, but it shows against Michigan and Ohio State, and that's kind of where the problem lies.
So in 2022, Ohio State had 3, 4, 5, looks like 7 or 8. In 2023 so far, they have about 7 or 8 too. Yeah. It just, I don't know. But see, I think, here's something else. They weren't getting 7 or 8. And this is the optimism part of this where, I don't know, maybe Ohio State's an exception, but let's take Clemson, for example, right? And Georgia. You don't go from getting 0 to getting 10. Right. You go from getting 0 to getting 1 or 2 or 3 game changers, and then you start winning more consistently. Maybe you need to win a game like this or something. And then, that 1 or 2 grows to 3 or 4, grows to 5 or 6. And then, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over a long time, you're, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and you're competing in Georgia. That's exactly what Georgia's doing right now, right? They're competing for the top of the top. A&M did it quickly because they bought all those players. But then that comes to the next level of, do you have the coaching to back it up? And talent comes first and then coaching comes second. And you kind of see where building a team the way Michigan did, they are on paper, similar to Penn State in terms of overall talent composite. But, they built their team a little bit differently. They're a run first kind of big bullying team. They're like super Wisconsin or super Iowa. So they're going to win games like that, right? Where, Penn State's trying to be, Penn State's Ohio State, but it'll step down. So they struggle to compete against Michigan right now because they don't have the bullies and they don't quite have the athletes that Ohio State does. So this will change over time. And I think it starts with, I don't know, we say this for years, but Drew Aller next year, if Parker Washington's back and the 2 youngster running backs are back, you get some of the emerging wide receivers, maybe they win a game like this and maybe they manage to beat Michigan next year or something. But they got to turn some of these close losses into wins, or it's just going to be mired in the same kind of upper end, but not quite their purgatory that they are right now.
Yeah. And, that's kind of been the problem, I guess, since 2016 is it was about the same from 17 to 19 and then 20 and 21. Obviously they took a step back, although 21 we'll never truly know what they were. I think they were closer to a 10-2 team than a 7-5 team, but this year, then it kind of looks like we're just getting back to 2019 again.
Right.
And, it kind of comes, it's like year 9 for Franklin or whatever by now. So it's time to get past 2017, 2019 and go above and beyond. So I think that'll be next year and the year after, where if it doesn't happen, it's probably not going to happen.
Exactly. I agree with that. So, I think too, and, this is, I'm sure if we had more people listening, this would be a problem. But winning the conference in 2016 was probably a curse in some ways because it set the expectation so well ahead of what they were ready to be.
Yeah.
2017 was the really strongest team that they had, right? And like, they should have won in 2017. They got very unlucky against Ohio State and then blew it against Michigan State. But that's the year that they should have really contended for the conference championship. But I think, going back to that 2016 year and saying, oh, well, they've done it before and they should be, now they should be in the upper echelon. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And that put a little bit of unfair expectation on the team that probably wasn't ready for it. 2017 better. 2018 was pretty good, right? Again, could have beat Ohio State. In 2019 was a really bad call against Minnesota for being an 11-1 team, right? And then like the wheels fell off in 2020, and like you said, 2021 probably was unfair, and now they're getting back to that level, but like they're still a step behind Ohio State. I don't care how you want to split it, right? That is evident, and now Michigan in a somewhat different way has passed them up a little bit too. So
yeah, I mean, we'll see. It really comes down to them not blowing up the rest of this year and going 10-2. I mean, if they end up like 8-4, and look, all four of these games we're gonna get into. We'll be back later in the week for Indiana, but Indiana, Maryland at home, Rutgers on the road, Michigan State, who looks terrible at home. I mean, you got to win all four of those games. I don't care if Clifford's the quarterback, Aller's the quarterback. I think those are games that you should win and need to win, because 10-2 and 9-3, 8-4, there's a drastic difference there.
There absolutely is.
Yeah.
So in my column this week, I went and did the predictor for the rest of the games, and Indiana, they have a 90% chance of winning. Rutgers is 96. Michigan State is 99. Like, Michigan State stinks, and makes me like, if for all how bad it is, that makes me happy. Maryland is the one that they're 84%, and that one's close. So I got Penn State winning 32-28, which, like, you take out 3 points for home field advantage. Those teams are neck and neck. So like that one ought to scare us a little bit. And Tualia is probably coming back for that game. He is, rumored to be back this week against Wisconsin. But that's one, like, that game is likely going to be the difference between a New Year's Six bowl and, like, potentially, like, then you're dropping really far, because you might, you're going to fall behind Illinois, you're going to fall behind Maryland. You're down to like, I don't know, you're down to Nashville at that point in time, close to it. So that is amazingly disappointing. Yeah. If that comes to pass. Now we're a long way from that, but
yeah, hopefully it doesn't. But all right, that's going to do it for this one.
I just have one more thing. I have one more stat that I love, like, and like this really puts an emphasis on how bad it was. So, and like how up and down it was, right? The Ohio State had 98 yards rushing on 26 carries. 65 of those yards were on 2 carries. So 60% of their yards on whatever that is, like 8% of their carries. And for 24 rushes, they had 35 yards. Like, that is that game. That is this game in a nutshell. Like, you play as well as you can, and it's like 10% of the plays that just turn this into an utter disaster. So, and that's the difference in talent. That's the difference in some luck, and that's the difference in wins and losses, and all the hope you could ever imagine in the year, and being again stuck in whatever purgatory Penn State is in right now.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully get out of it soon. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see